this for video? Yes.
Yes, we are. We are.
With my baby elephant.
Oh,
Hi.
what is that? Is that an ornament?
This is a baby elephant. Here, I'll turn him on. Hey. He glows. Can you see him glowing?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, we can even play piano.
Fabulous. Right, questions. There's an impressionist in the
Oh, I feel bad now. I killed a creature of the night.
Right, I'm going to make that my headline.
Okay, Minchin, murderous Minchin.
Fly murdering.
Releases album of hate.
Yeah, exactly. So album of hate then, there was, I remember there was an impressionist over here who used to do all these very fancy impressions, and then at the end, he would break into a song and he'd go, and this is me. Is this album you?
Oh, no. I mean, it feels like a reasonable approximation of a version of me. I mean, I like that I've made a record that that I haven't pursued a particular stylistic or thematic goal. I've just sort of written some stuff and then worked with a fantastic producer to make it acoustically cohesive. And it certainly, in hindsight, represents who I am at the moment. I think it sort of with surprising accuracy. Although I suppose I shouldn't be surprised, because when I sit down and write a song, all I ever do is try to speak some sort of truth. I'm not trying to second guess a market or write something that will go on the radio. I'm just going, how do I reflect on this in a way that's interesting? So I suppose it should represent me, but I think what I'm surprised at is it's like, so 45-year-old dude, like looking at how fast time's passing and, you know, slightly thinking about mortality. It's like a midlife crisis album, but I shouldn't say that because I think it's better than that. But yeah, it's me, I suppose.
So you didn't think, oh, you know, that comedy audience who have grown up with me, I'm now going to make them something much more serious and substantial?
Not really, because I do understand that, especially in England, there's a sense that I'm a comedian who's branching out. But from my point of view, I mean, I've been writing songs and acting and making stuff since I was a kid, and I'm now 45, and 6 years of that I concentrated on comedy. And I'm, you know, I've written Broadway musicals, and, you know, I've helped write award-winning TV dramas and stuff. And so, like that sounds terrible, but what I mean is, from my point of view, I'm not a comedian who's branching out. I'm a person with branches, one of which is comedy. And also, I guess, although I do understand that I have to, it would be foolish of me from a sort of career point of view to ostracize my audience. I also have great faith in them, and I've learned to have great faith in them because over the years I've done all sorts of stuff and they're still there, you know, buying my crap. And I think especially because the type of people who like my work know that my comedy was never just like, here's a gag, here's a gag, here's a gag, here's a funny thing about milk. That it was always, the comedy was always a doorway into a slightly bigger conversation about why humans are shit or why we're not, sort of thing. And also I'm not going, no, I'm a serious recording artist. I'm just continuing to make stuff and put it out there. And if 100 people buy this record, then I'll go, oh, 100 people like that record. And then I'll go make my next thing. And if 1 million people like that, I'll go, oh, 1 million people like that. And then I'll go make my next thing. I'm very lucky because I don't feel the need for any reason to only pursue the most popular part of what I do, because I don't think popularity is the only measure.
Yes, you don't. So you're not worried about this has to be successful, this has to be more successful than this last thing I've done?
No, that seems like a terrible idea, doesn't it? Imagine if I went after Matilda, which I didn't write, Dennis and Matthew and Rob and Pete and Hugh and the RSE and I created that. If I went, okay, if the next thing I make is not as good as Matilda, I'm going to find another children's book. And I mean, it's just absurd. I mean, how lucky am I that that happened? But that's not, I would be a deeply unhappy man to pursue that lightning in a bottle. And actually, the great joy of my career is I get to do all this different stuff. So this integer of, consumers, it just, I just don't care, which is a great privilege. It's simply that I don't think I'm going to go broke because I think I'm okay at a few things and there'll be an audience. And if I need to make some money, I'll go back and do some comedy or something.
And it's very nice to be able to skip around the genres. I mean, I was listening to Summer Romance yesterday, and the beginning of that sounds like a Bond theme. Is that something?
Yeah, it's quite weird, isn't it? I don't understand that song, and it's mostly number one on the record because Sarah loves it, and I've always been a bit suspicious of it, especially I think the back end's amazing, but yeah, I don't know what that song's about. What the hell's going on there?
I think any mention of Highgate Woods is a good thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It does feel viscerally to me like the coming of autumn in London, and it takes me back there. And it's a cracking running song because it's a slow grow. It doesn't have a normal pop structure. The whole song's about how we want to hold on to the periods of our lives that make us happy, that we want to hold on to our youth, and we want to hold on to summer, and we want to hold on to the holidays, and that the wisdom you need to get is that you have to love those periods but let them go. But the song as a result holds on and holds on and holds off and doesn't ever resolve to that B flat chord. It doesn't hit the one until the second time it goes One More Day of Sun, and then goes bouge, and then just opens up. So if you go jogging with that song in your ears, you're like, okay. And when it finally goes, it's a really good jogging song. I care about how songs function with jogging.
I think it's very important. And I think you should also write a Bond theme in the future. I'm looking forward to that.
I may not, where the hell is my offer? I'm even quite good friends with David Arnold, who's written most of the Bond music in the last 20 years. I'm outraged.
Absolutely. What a lot of your songs don't follow a pattern. It's not just verse chorus. What's lovely is you do just go bam. Oh, look, there's a trumpet solo, hand grenade in there. Which is really, it lifts everything. It makes everything so unformulaic, which is really refreshing.
I'm very glad you think it's refreshing. I guess I don't know, there must be a reason why people generally stick to a form. I certainly think I do understand the art of pop songwriting, and I do understand why I wouldn't want my songs to come on the radio necessarily. They're a bit long and they kind of ask a bit much of you. I wouldn't sit around listening to my record every day. My record's probably more something that you sit down and listen to in the same way you might watch a TV show, maybe. I don't know. I hope people play it in the background. It's certainly sonically lovely. But I kind of feel the same way about songwriting as I do about musicals, actually, in that there's this sense that if you write a musical, when I wrote Matilda, some of the critics came out early, they got great reviews, but the score didn't necessarily get showered in praise. And the reason was they said, I didn't exactly come out humming a tune, and there's this idea that a piece of musical theatre is valuable if you come out humming a tune. Now, there's this mythology around a hook that people go, wow, that guy's a great hook writer. Those tunes stick in your head. It's just repetition. I mean, obviously there are good hooks, but mostly if a tune sticks in your head or a phrase sticks in your head, it's because it was repeated 40 times during the evening. And I've always sort of thought, I don't care if anyone comes out humming a tune. What I care about is whether they're feeling what I want them to be feeling in the moment about the character or the story. Because my job as a songwriter of musicals is not to send them out humming a tune. It's to make sure when we hit the curtain at the end, they felt the right thing. And I feel the same in a song, like that trumpet coming in where the second verse should be in a part together. I wrote my way through that long first verse, landed on this chorus, and I got to the end of it and went, I don't, I, there's no going back now. I've sort of ambled my way through this story of these old people towards a thesis, which is like, the upside of freezing to death is you get to stay that way. And then through that into the rest of us have to decay. And through that into this pseudo-romantic, unromantic idea that love is really about watching each other die. And where do you go from there? Well, what I want people to do is feel that that's a beautiful thing, not just a sad thing, but also a sad, beautiful thing. So I'm going to get Matt Jodrell to play that through his trumpet. And it's my favorite moment on the record because it's defiantly the pursuit of an emotional reaction, not humming a tune or not radio play. And as a 45-year-old person who's had this weird career, I have this incredible, I'm so lucky because I get to just go, I don't care about anything except what the listener is feeling at that moment in time.
And it's clear from looking at the comments about that song, it makes people cry a lot. It really does.
Yes, I really like upsetting people. That's actually, if you draw a line through my career, what you'll find is mostly I managed to upset people, one way or another.
So one word review of the album, devastating.
Yeah, devastating. This will make you feel really bad. No, I think it's meant to, it's meant to be uplifting. Yeah.
Do you use songwriting as therapy? Because your lyrics are they're incredibly sort of well honed, aren't they? It's not just like an outpouring of what's going on in your heart.
Well, it's very didactic. I mean, that's not what you're meant to do with songs. Songs are meant to be open to interpretation. I kind of go like that. I don't know why I write like I do. I don't think it's necessarily, I don't know how much I would listen to it, but it's kind of nerdy, super nerdy songwriting, and it is very influenced by the fact that I've written a lot of theater and I've written a lot of comedy. I seem to not be able to let people just. I'm not very good at just like going, here's some colors on a canvas, here's a moment of red and a splash of, and let's see what they make of that. I'm like, I've got a set of ideas. I'm going to propose them to you. Here's my thesis. Are they therapy? I think I try and write myself into my beliefs a bit. I try to clarify the same way I use interviews tediously to try and further clarify what I think about stuff. It's all narcissism.
Airport Piano, you didn't write it on an airport piano, did you?
Famously. No, I didn't. I just like the phrase, I wrote the song on an airport piano, which of course was inspired by walking by the never used airport piano. I think it's in Terminal 3 at Heathrow on your way out. It's usually like, there's that stupid piano that no one plays. Now, where is my Addison Lee guy? They're never here.
And your observations about the women in the Porsche SUVs, is that from your experience in LA?
Yeah, I think I jotted that lyric down in LA, and it's a slightly mean lyric, but I just remember going through, Hollywood at some point and seeing like person after person in SUVs looking sort of cross. But that's fair enough because driving down Sunset's a nightmare. But yeah, I just thought it was a silly lyric. It was a nice little crack through which I could, have this discussion about. I didn't realize that's what I was writing until that song kind of wrote itself. this idea of just finding a different way to talk about the very well-worn adage that wealth doesn't buy you happiness and acquisition and power don't make you happy. And it's something I've got great proximity to because of how lucky I've been. I've got to meet a lot of, wealthy, powerful, famous people, and I get to live near the beach on a street where mostly people, drive posh cars, and I just think I don't think those people are very happy. But especially if you can't stop, and it's a cliche, but I like my take on it, I suppose. And I got to write on a piano.
You've got very neat handwriting.
Well, I don't, but I worked. I was in quarantine, and the guy who helped, my brother-in-law, who's a very artistic guy, I was like, if we get this pen and I just write like this in a really uniform way, it'll look all right. And we sort of practiced. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with it, really. My handwriting has never been my thing.
So tell me about where you shot the video.
Oh, it was in a garage of a friend's house in Perth. So we were quarantined in Perth for 2 weeks. We all had to rush back because my mum very suddenly was very ill, and because the states in Australia all have different levels of COVID and different ways to approach it. We were very lucky though. We didn't have to quarantine in a hotel. We quarantined in a very generous, very nice house of a friend with my sister and her husband and their 2 kids, and a big garden and a garage. And because I had this deadline to release this single, and I had been talking to my sister and her husband about doing it together anyway, because they're both creatives, it kind of worked out really well. And it's a great example that you have to learn again and again in life, but especially as a creative, that often the things that come out best are the making lemonade out of lemons, the necessity being the mother of invention moments. And it's my favorite music video so far, and it cost a tenth of the subsequent one.
And there's nothing more glamorous than a boiler suit.
I look amazing in a disposable paper painter's suit. That's what I think we've all learned from this.
And tell me about what's happening to the desecrated piano now.
Oh, it's actually on a truck, I think. It's arriving back in Sydney. I'm going to use it during this streaming gig I'm about to announce. And then I'm going to auction it for an arts charity that helps. Well, I haven't announced the charity yet, but it's an arts charity.
Excellent.
And I'm aiming. I think we're gonna do all right. I've already got some interested parties, so I'm very excited.
Fabulous.
I'll be an artist. I'll be officially a visual artist at that point.
Yeah, this is another career direction that you might just...
I'm just going to start calling myself a visual artist. Yeah.
There's an almost sort of throwaway line in Airport Piano that just goes, "So it goes." And that says an awful lot in 3 very little words.
Well, they're Vonnegut's words, right? So Kurt Vonnegut, as I'm sure you know, wrote a novel called Slaughterhouse-Five, which is one of my favorite books ever. And he's a sci-fi writer, although calling Vonnegut a sci-fi writer is a massive sort of simplification. But he has a race of aliens who every time anyone dies, they say, "So it goes." And it's just been a very, very helpful phrase in my life. And the album's peppered with nerdy, there's Absence of You has Unruly Sun from John Donne's Sun Rising, and Airport Piano has Vonnegut, and there's some Shakespeare peppered throughout it. I mean, I am shamelessly just an arts graduate gone rogue. So yeah, So It Goes is a tip of the hat to Vonnegut, who's one of my favorite authors.
You had a really terrible experience with larrikins that we talked about when I last spoke to you, that caused you to leave LA. Looking back on it, do you think it was a blessing in disguise?
Oh, well, it didn't cause me to leave LA because Sydney 2018 had been our plans since we left London. Just unfortunately, I left having not made the thing I wanted to make. I think it's hard to see all that work, and not just my work, but the work of my writer, the writer Harry, my dear friend, and Pierre and Jean-Paul, and all the incredible animators. And it's hard to see it as a blessing. On a personal level, I'm glad I'm not in America anymore, although I think we would have left by now anyway. I guess I learned a huge amount from it. And there's certainly a parallel universe where I got to release that film, and it got an Oscar nomination for Best Song or for Best Animated Film or whatever. It's statistically perfectly possible given how few animated films and musicals come out every year. And at which point I'm in demand as a songwriter for animated films or a director of animated films. And I get tempted to stay, and I'm living in that world. And Hollywood's a very seductive bubble because it makes you believe, and Broadway does too, that the sum total of the world's art is here, and that the level on which you have to compete is this level, and that box office, and this animated film made $52 million on its first weekend, and this made 86, and this only made 35 million on the first weekend. That's a failure. And those parameters become truth, and it's very hard to resist. And so I'm very, very glad that, I guess it's a blessing, and also that I got to come home and make Upright, which is such an important thing in my life. It was such a special project and such a transformative moment for me as a creator of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it all makes sense in hindsight, I suppose.
Are you still, would you say, involved in activism? I mean, you did that track with Briggs, didn't you? When was that? April?
Yeah.
Taking aim at Scott Morrison. Would you do the same for Donald Trump or Boris Johnson?
Oh, I mean, there's just no point with Trump. I have written a few arguably impactful satirical songs aimed at very particular things. In Australia, most impactful was the Cardinal Pell song, which had a very clear aim, which was to raise money for abuse survivors, but also to make the point that being someone who wears frocks because you're special in a particular religion doesn't inoculate you against normal criticism that would be leveled at a normal person who had failed to report sexual abuse. So I had a very clear goal, and I did it, and that was fine. I don't think my job is to have my say on everything, and I'm very clear that it has to be something I care deeply about for whatever reason, viscerally, and that I feel like I can say something that says something different and that has an outcome that is desirable. And outcomes that are undesirable include getting a bunch of hate, therefore damaging my mental health and the happiness of my family. So as I get older, I want to do it less and less because it's tiring and harmful to people around me. I got death threats and all that, and it's fine. No one was going to kill me, but it comes at a cost, and fair enough. If you're going to be scathing in public, you're going to get scathing back. But what's the point in writing about Trump? I mean, who am I going to convince? We all know he's an idiot, except for a very important small percentage of the planet who are completely bamboozled by him. I mean, what do you say? Boris, I don't know. I think I'm so distressed by the world. I just want to, I have to stop thinking I can help. I think that's the main thing. I'm not going to help by taking a shot at Trump. It's just going to be a bunch of people on Twitter saying they like it or they don't. I'd rather write songs about entropy.
Oh, dead people dying together happily.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you say your whole philosophy is based on that shag, drink, and dance thing, or is it talk too much, stay too long? Bit of both.
I definitely talk too much, stay too long is definitely how you could describe my interview style. I think talk too much, stay too long is a fair criticism. Although that song is really slightly, slightly defiant. Like it is slightly a response to the conservative press who told me when I wrote the Pell song and stuff that I need to shut up and I'm a nobody and I'm a bong smoking hippie, F word or whatever. And that song's a bit like, you can't stop me because I play the piano and I have a platform and I'm going to keep singing and screw you. But it's also, acknowledging that I just carry on. No, I'm not shag, drink, and dance. I'm really measured and cautious about. As I used to do a bit of stand up about people who say live each day as if it's your last, and it was a sort of rambling story that said don't live it. That the sort of end was don't live each day as if it's your last. Live each day as if it's the first of probably some 7 or 10 or 15,000 days still to live, where all your actions have effects on both you and those around you. Like, I'm sort of conservative. Basically, I think a lot about how to make sure I'm not hurting tomorrow me or tomorrow Sarah.
Yes, there's a lot in what you write in your songs about not shagging the wrong person.
Yeah. Well, it's a thing, I mean, people don't. Yeah. I mean, you got to write about what you know, and not shagging was for some years a big part of my life, for whatever reason. I mean, when you tour a lot and I mean, I really like people and company and drinking, and so yeah, it was something I had to have a look at. And it's not so much that I've spent my whole life, being propositioned in hotel rooms, but rather that it's something that I think people don't write about. And I think that's actually a defining feature of what I write. It's that I think this hasn't been given enough attention. The fact that marriage is a commitment to watching each other die is a very obvious observation, but it hasn't been given much attention in art. So, or in the case of my comedy, the fact that statistically you could have fallen in love with lots of different people is a totally, pedestrian fact, but it's not given much attention in love songs. So,
yeah. And I don't think there are quite enough songs about dying in a plane crash.
Well, there should be lots, because I mean, I'm not a fearful flyer, but it does, when it's bumpy, you think, if this is a bad one, if I'm going down, I often think I'd really like to be. I'd like to go out being okay, So I do a lot of preparation for that. I do a bit of preparation for that in general. I mean, the whole album is slightly a bit of a look at how fast time is passing and all that stuff. And yeah, I think it's pretty important at some point in your life to go, well, death, it's all through Groundhog Day as well. It's a huge part of Groundhog Day, the musical version, that in Phil Connor's journey, his last real step towards wisdom was understanding that death is not only inevitable but a necessary part of life. And yeah, I'm really, really interested in it. Not in a particularly morbid way. I think Plane Goes Down is quite funny, but I'm very interested in the mission of integrating the inevitability of your own